like any candidate, her strengths can be her weaknesses. Her strengths, which are the fact that she's extraordinarily experienced and wicked smart and knows every policy inside and out, sometimes could make her more cautious and campaign more in prose than poetry.
President Obama on Politico's podcast Off Message over the weekend, assessing what he believes to be the strengths and weaknesses of Hillary Clinton as a candidate for president. President Obama also said that Hillary comes into the race with both the privilege and burden of being perceived as the front runner. So, will Mr. Obama's comments help or hurt Hillary? To go in depth on these and other stories, we call in our political panel. First, one of my old pals out in Arizona, Skyping in from Mesa, the co-founder and editor-in-chief of POLITISTICK.com, Jennifer Burke. And Skyping in from our nation's capital, former advisor to Senate Leader Harry Reid, Ari Ravenhoft. Ari, of course, also host of The Agenda on SiriusXM Radio's Progressive channel. So usually, panelists, our president is cautious, judicious with his choice of words. Jennifer, in your opinion, will the presidential assessment hurt Hillary's presidential campaign?
You know, to me, JD, it might very well do just that. Actually, when I first heard him say those words, my initial thought was, that's the cheesy interview answer that everyone always gives when they go in for a job interview. What are your weaknesses? Well, actually, I see my weaknesses as my strengths. I don't think that kind of thing is going to do her any favors. And then as far as talking about her experience, I just saw 13 Hours, the movie about Benghazi, and the one thing Hillary didn't have the experience enough to do was to respond to those men and women who were begging for help. You know, that commercial, who do you want answering the phone at 3 a.m.? Hillary showed us we don't want her.
Ari, Jennifer just mentioned a mythical job interview. Well, I guess it was a job interview of sorts yesterday when Secretary Clinton was on NBC's Meet the Press, and she was somewhat defensive. Now, I want you to take a look and listen to who she blames for the latest attacks against her Wall Street connections.
It's really interesting to me that now Karl Rove has taken money from the financial interest to run an ad against me to try to influence Democrats not to support me. Why? Ask yourself why. Because he knows, number one, I know what must be done, and number two, I know how to get it done to make sure that Wall Street writ large, not just the banks, but the investment banks, the hedge funds, and everybody else.
So this is a little too rich, pardon the pun. Hillary going after Karl Rove? I understand attacking is better than explaining. But Ari, will Mrs. Clinton ever own up to her own Wall Street connections?
Well, look, I've not been silent in my criticism of Hillary on this issue. She is technically accurate. One of Karl Rove's groups is spending money on an ad in Iowa that focuses on this issue. That's just an accurate statement of what's going on the ground in Iowa right now. Look, I think Hillary Clinton in a Democratic primary needs to address these issues. Bernie Sanders has forced her to address these issues, and it's become a major debate in the Democratic primary, which is actually a good thing for Democrats, frankly.
Ari, with a dispassionate assessment, sounds like you're not exactly a big fan of Hillary's, but I appreciate what you had to say right there. Well, I tell you what, we're going to move to the Republican side of the aisle. Rick Perry makes it official. He endorses fellow Texan Ted Cruz. Let's look at what Governor Perry had to say earlier today.
He understands the 10th Amendment. He's not interested in consolidating more power in Washington, D.C. Push it back out to the states. Let this country get back to being this powerful, competitive place where the states compete against each other, and people will figure out where they want to go live.
Yeah.
And this one-size-fits-all government, we can get away from.
Jennifer, the governor went on to say in an interview with Politico, quote, Ted Cruz is by far the most consistent conservative in that crowd. Is it a big deal? Is Perry's endorsement a key, a boost to the Cruz campaign? 30 seconds.
You know, I think to a lot of the grassroots it is. Goodness gracious. I grew up most of my life in Texas, 35 years, and I have friends in Washington that were staunch Perry supporters because of what he did in the state of Texas. Texas led the way in job creation, and he knows the power of the states. The states created the federal government, not the other way around. And it's important to have a president that understands that. So I do think that it could make a difference.
Ari, your assessment of the Perry endorsement, 15 seconds.
I mean, if somebody can't get enough votes to even complete a primary campaign, does their endorsement really matter? Does Lindsey Graham's endorsement matter? If Martin O'Malley dropped out, would his endorsement matter? I don't see these things as mattering.
Ari Ravenhoft with a somewhat clinical, dispassionate political analysis today, but still undergirded by ideology. We appreciate you, Ari, from the left and from the right. My dear friend Jennifer Burke, my old pal, Skyping in from Mesa, Arizona. We really appreciate both your comments. What do you think about what they had to say? Send me your comments at newsmaxtv.com/comments.